Greetings, sisters. This presentation is a short introduction to the idea of global Englishes. Englishes with a little e, because English itself comes in so many varieties, both as it sounds in various countries around the world, and as it sounds in various cultures within the United States. The idea is that English is not a monolithic language with only one correct pronunciation, one correct way of writing. It's a living language. It's a cultural thing. When we move from the cultural expression to the academic expression, furthermore, a change takes place. The English that you speak is unique to your group's culture because you already have a particular way of speaking in translation that comes out of the sounds you make in the Vietnamese language as they encounter the sounds you want to make in the English language. Our work here these coming weeks is to teach you to strengthen your English expression for the academic and social culture in which you're living, without making you feel that your current manner of interacting with the English language is in any way a bad form of the language. It's appropriate, in fact, for your current state of development in your interactions with one another. It changes when you have to interact with the academy and with people outside your culture. There is a definite advantage, then, to being able to speak and write in what is understood to be our common dialect in the United States, Modern Standard English. These advantages lie in part in the educational opportunities speakers of Modern Standard English have, and in part in the ability to meaningfully interact with native speakers of English. It's important to strengthen your listening, speaking, reading, and writing skills in Modern Standard English. Students who speak a certain way tend to write in the same way, and students with good spoken communication skills in Modern Standard English may also have good written communication skills in Modern Standard English. The reason is that they are able to listen and understand, speak and be understood, read and comprehend, write and be intelligible. While there is no doubt that understanding and being able to perform in Modern Standard English are crucial to the success of students in English language programs, it is helpful for students to know that there is a reason why we qualify the use of the English language in terms of Modern Standard. The reason is because there are global Englishes. Here's England, home to 56 million souls. Here's India, home to over 100 million who speak English as their native language. The dialect in India, though, sounds radically different from the dialect of its former colonial master. If you tell an Indian whose native tongue is English that his manner of speaking needs to be improved, you may offend him. After all, English is his native language too. Here's the United States, with 300 million speakers of English, most of whom speak in their own regional dialects, though able to code switch from the dialect of, say, the inner city to the dialect that is mutually comprehensible by all folks. All persons who speak a dialect of the English language in this country consider themselves to be speaking proper English. Some, though, realize that there are times when they need to code switch, which means to move from their regional dialect into the modern standard form of the tongue. Zora Neale Hurston, a Harlem Renaissance writer in the 20s and 30s, was perfectly competent in the modern standard English of her time, but she was able to maintain her existence in both worlds, and was easily conversant in the black English with which she grew up. In How It Feels to Be a Colored Me, she writes as follows: I remember the very day I became colored, but I am not tragically colored. Someone is always at my elbow, reminding me that I am the granddaughter of slaves. No one on earth ever had a greater chance for glory, the world to be won and nothing to be lost. At certain times, I have no race. I am me. I feel like a brown bag of miscellany, propped against a wall, in company with other bags, white, red, and yellow. Pour out the contents, and there is discovered a jumble of small things, priceless and worthless. Could they be emptied, that all might be dumped in a single heap, and the bags refilled without altering the content of any greatly? A bit of colored glass, more or less, would not matter. The essay is written in modern standard English, with no reliance at all on the language of her culture. But it was not for essays like this that she achieved her fame. This just proved her level of education was on par with native speakers of modern standard, and even excelled, perhaps, their education, as she had to move out of one linguistic code and settle into another, something which many of her educated contemporaries did not have to do. Hurston's fame came with books like Their Eyes Were Watching God, an excerpt of which reads as follows: Janie, you's your own woman, and I hope you know what you're doing. I sure hope you ain't like a possum. The older you gets, the less sense you got. I'd feel a whole heap better about you if you was marrying that man up there in Sanford. He got something to put alongside what you got, and that make it more better. He's endurable. Another excerpt. She was born in slavery times, when folks, that is black folks, didn't sit down any time they felt like it. So sitting on porches, like the white madame, looked like a mighty fine thing to her. That's what she wanted for me. Don't care what it cost. Get up on a high chair and sit there. She didn't have time to think about what to do after you got up on the stool, or do nothing. The object was to get there. So I got up in the high stool like she told me. But Phoebe, I done nearly languished to death up there. I felt like the world was crying extra, and ain't read the common news yet. In writing this, she was able to draw from the cultural experience that created her into who she was. This was black society in the 1920s, and it represented a rich cultural tradition that cannot easily be left behind without first abandoning those that raised her and loved her as she grew into an adult. To leave this entirely behind in pursuit of a career in white America would not have boded well for Hurston's sense of identity, nor for establishing any sort of meaning in her life. Dialect, furthermore, is not limited to dialogue, but to the very prose with which these stories are narrated, as in Tony Cade Bambara's The Lesson, written in 1972 and found anthologized in a text published in 1998, about a little colored girl who comes to an understanding of the differences between the black and the white culture in America. Bambara writes, "So we headed down the street, and she's, Miss Moore, boring us silly about what things cost, and what our parents make, and how much goes for rent, and how much money ain't divided up right in this country. And then she gets to the part about we all poor, and live in the slums, which I don't feature. And I'm ready to speak on that, but she steps out in the street and hails 2 cabs just like that. Then she hustles half the crew in with her and hands me a $5 bill and tells me to calculate 10% tip for the driver, and we're off. But I'm mostly trying to figure out how to spend this money. But they all fascinated with the meter ticking, and Junebug starts laying bets as to how much it'll read when Flyboy can't hold his breath no more. Then Sugar lays bets as to how much it'll be when we get there, so I'm stuck. Don't nobody want to go for my plan, which is to jump out of the next light and run off at the first barbecue we can find. But the driver tells us to get out, 'cause we dare already. And the meter reads 85 cents, and I'm stalling to figure out the tip, and Sugar say, give him a dime. And I decide he don't need it as bad as I do, so later for him. But then he tries to take off with Junebug foot, still in the door. So we talk about his mama something ferocious. Then we check out that we on 5th Street. Then we check out that we on 5th Avenue, and everybody dressed up in stockings. One lady in a fur coat, hot as it is. White folks crazy. Not only is there grammatical consistency in this excerpt, but there is a certain poetic rhythm that defines the narrator as unmistakably a part of her culture as any photograph would do. An inability of the author to have been able to represent the narrator in this way would have led to a loss of her credibility in describing a little northern black girl from the ghettos of black America. Moreover, were the character herself made to speak modern standard in bromidic undertones of acquiescence to white culture, there would have been no story to write. Another good example of an American minority who comes into conflict with linguistic prejudice is found in Amy Tan's Mother Tongue, where she argues that the academic English with which she wrote her college essays, and with which she gave innumerable lectures, paled in comparison beside the dialect with which she grew up by her mother's side. Though she grew frustrated with her mother's lack of communication skills when faced by mainstream society, she admits that it was a comfortable dialect for the both of them when they would converse together, and later evolved into a language of intimacy between her and her husband, an example of which she gives in this essay. Do you song, having business like fruit stand, like off the street kind. He is like do zong, but not Sung Ming island people. The local people call Putong, the river east side. He belonged to that side local people. That man want to ask Du Zong father take him in like become own family. Du Zong father wasn't looked down on him, but didn't take seriously until that man big like become a mafia. Now important person, very hard to inviting him. Chinese way, came only to show respect. Don't stay for dinner. Respect for making big celebration. He shows up. Ming gives lots of respect. Chinese custom. Chinese social life that way. If too important, won't have to stay too long. He come to my wedding. I didn't see. I heard it. I gone to boy side. They have YMCA dinner. Chinese age. I was 19. The greatest part about writing her novels, which include The Joy Luck Club and The Kitchen God's Wife, she declared, lay in the response she received from her mother regarding them, where her mother praised her work by telling her it was so easy to read, by fulfilling that part of Amy Tan's culture which was intrinsically hers. It's not just black Americans or other minorities who have this heritage, though. John Steinbeck wrote of Mice and Men in the southern white dialect of the migrant laborer from Oklahoma. Suppose you didn't have nobody. Suppose you couldn't go into the bunkhouse and play rummy because you was black. How'd you like that? Suppose you had to sit out here and read books. Sure, you could play horseshoes till it got dark, but then you got to read books. Books ain't no good. A guy needs somebody to be near him. A guy goes nuts if he ain't got nobody. Don't make no difference who the guy is, long as he was with you. I tell you, a guy gets too lonely and he gets sick. Had Steinbeck relied on the modern standard usage of the English language, he would have sacrificed a great deal of realism in his dialogue. The reason for that is that people do not talk like they are reading out of academic journals. Language has a life, a color of its own, which transcends academic rules and moves into the realm of simply conveying meaning. Everyone is uncomfortable when he or she first starts code switching from his or her native tongue into modern standard English. After living 18 years in East Texas, for instance, I had developed a healthy sense of expression filled with Southern colloquialisms, a twangish drawl, and the grammatical anomalies discussed earlier. At age 41, with a doctorate, 4 master's degrees, 2 years foreign service, and 14 years living in St. Louis, I no longer communicate with the dialect of my homeland. I speak English without an accent, clear, crisp, and concise, and I write on a level far superior, if that term can be safely used, than the brothers I left behind, who never achieved my level of education. When I return home, it takes some getting used to the dialect I used to could talk, and I slowly slip back into the accent I was once so comfortable with. That's how we talk in East Texas. My ability to code switch does not mean that I lose my education or my senses when I do so, but that I am educated enough to know what circumstances warrant certain modes of expression, or shifts in dialect, in changes in verbal grammatical usage. That's what you want to know too. And that's what this course will introduce you to. I will see you tomorrow for the lesson on phonology.